that song, how could she know it?
If I don't belong on their stage, I'll make my own.
When you were silent, they won. Do you understand what that cost us?
On a crowded pedestrian street, a young man froze when a melody brushed past his ears, one he had never forgotten. He stepped closer, and there she was, a little girl clutching an old ukulele, eyes closed, voice pouring out the very song that once defined his life. Moved, he dropped a few coins into the hat at her feet, but when she looked up, his breath caught. The face staring back carried features he knew too well, echoes of a past he thought buried. What happens next will unravel secrets kept in silence, and it will show how a broken family can still find its rhythm again. Stay until the end, because this isn't just about chance. It's about justice, about silence shattered, and about love that learns how to sing again. Wherever you're watching from, we wish you peace, strength, and the courage to hold on. And now, let's begin our story. He was only 26. But the weight on his shoulders felt older. Daniel Cross had spent the evening moving through the city like a shadow, his briefcase still dangling though the workday was long finished. He wanted silence, but silence was not what reached him. It was music. A thread of sound floated above the noise of the crowd, not polished, not rehearsed, but piercing. One melody, one he had never been able to forget. Daniel stopped. The tune curled around him, pulling him off his path. He followed it, each step slower, as if he already knew what he was about to find. At the edge of the walking street, he saw her. A little girl, no more than 8, sat cross-legged on the pavement. A battered ukulele rested against her small body, its strings uneven, one patched with tape. Her eyes were closed, lashes trembling, as if she was pouring every hidden feeling into the song. And the song, God, the song, was the very one Amara had chosen for their wedding, the one they whispered to each other when they thought forever was secure. Daniel's chest tightened. His breath stalled. The crowd didn't notice. People tossed coins into the open cap beside her, hurried on. But Daniel felt his feet root to the ground. He listened, helpless. She sang high and raw, a voice untrained but so full of conviction that strangers turned their heads. The ukulele chimed in awkward rhythm, but it didn't matter. Her music carried more honesty than the polished concerts he had once bought Amara tickets for. Daniel reached into his pocket. His hand shook, though he told himself it was the night air. He pulled out a few coins, stepped closer, and let them fall into the cap. Clink. The sound startled her. She opened her eyes, and the world around him collapsed, because those eyes, dark, round, unflinching, were not unfamiliar. They were mirrors of a face he used to trace with his hand, the same fire, the same softness. His throat locked. His heart slammed against his ribs. For one terrifying, impossible second, Daniel thought he was staring into Amara's eyes. Only smaller, younger, unscarred by years of struggle. The girl blinked at him. Then she smiled, faint and quick, like a candle flicker in wind. "Thank you," she whispered, voice nearly drowned by footsteps and chatter. Daniel could not move. He had meant to nod, to walk away, to bury the sting of memory in the safety of distance. But instead he stared, searching her features as if each one were a riddle only he could solve. The curve of her mouth when she shaped a word, the tilt of her chin when she reset the strings, even the way her curls slipped loose from a rushed ponytail. Every detail carved into him like déjà vu. She strummed. Another chord, soft, uncertain, waiting. Daniel's lips parted. But no words came. Because in that moment, every wall he had built since Amara left 6 years ago, every excuse, every defense, shattered. He was staring not just at a child playing music in the street. He was staring at proof. Proof that silence had not erased the past. Proof that some melodies return, whether you invite them or not. A question rose in him, sharp and unbearable. Could this child be his, He stepped back, almost stumbling. His briefcase thudded against his leg. People brushed by, irritated at his stillness. But he couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't blink away the storm that had just erupted inside him. The girl tilted her head. "Mister, you look like you saw a ghost." Her words cut deeper than she knew, because to Daniel, that was exactly what had happened. Daniel forced himself to steady his breath, but the city refused to slow down for him. Beneath neon lights and restless footsteps, the girl plucked another chord. The sound was shaky, but her voice filled the gaps. She was not performing for the crowd. She was carrying something heavier, as though each lyric was stitched to her own heartbeat. Daniel tried to look away. He couldn't. The song pressed against old scars he thought were buried. It wasn't chance, couldn't be. That melody had belonged to him and Amara. To nights in a small apartment where curtains fluttered, where laughter was easy, where they thought love could shield them from the world outside. And now here it was, returning through a child's voice. He swallowed hard, stepped closer, and spoke without planning. "Where did you learn that song?" The girl looked up, cautious but curious. "My mama taught me." The answer punched through him. For a moment he forgot the noise, the coins, the eyes of strangers. All he could see was the faint smear of chocolate on her cheek, the frayed cuff of her oversized sleeve, and the innocence in her tone when she said the word mama. His chest constricted. Amara. The name screamed inside him, but he kept it silent. The girl tilted her head, studying him. "You look sad," she said softly. "That's why I played it." Daniel tried to smile, but it broke halfway. "Do I?" She nodded with the confidence only children have. "Not the saddest I've seen, but close." The word struck him deeper than she intended. Before he could answer, she strummed a lighter rhythm, humming under her breath, as if trying to lift the weight she had noticed in him. Daniel stared. He wanted to deny the thought clawing at his mind, to walk away and let coincidence be coincidence. But every line of her face pulled him back. Every glance carried a familiarity he could not unsee. He crouched slowly, his coat brushing the pavement. "What's your name?" She hesitated, then said with pride, "Lyric." Lyric. A name that sounded less like chance and more like a sign. Daniel's mouth went dry. "It suits you," she grinned, missing tooth flashing. "That's what Mama says." He almost asked her mother's name. Almost. But fear sealed his lips. Fear that the answer would confirm what he already knew in his bones. Instead, he reached into his wallet, fingers trembling. He pulled a folded bill, placed it gently into the cap beside the coins. Lyric's eyes widened. "That's too much." "Not for that song," he whispered. She watched him for a beat, as if trying to measure whether he was mocking her. Then she nodded, satisfied, and tucked the bill beneath the ukulele strap. Daniel rose to his feet, heart hammering. He should go. Walk away before the past caught him whole, but his legs disobeyed. Lyric leaned back against the wall, adjusting the ukulele with a practiced gesture. "Mama says music goes where medicine can't, so I sing. Helps her breathe better sometimes." The words froze him. "Mama's sick?" he asked carefully. She shrugged, too casual for a child her age. "Just tired a lot. But I help. I'm good at helping." Daniel's throat burned. He wanted to say you shouldn't have to help, but the truth lodged like glass in his mouth. Lyric strummed again, softer now. "You should smile, mister. Songs work better when people smile," he tried. The attempt cracked something inside him, because he realized she wasn't just playing for strangers. She was fighting against silence. The same silence that had ruined him and Amara. Daniel turned slightly, scanning the crowd, half expecting, half dreading to see her mother appear. But the walking street moved on, uncaring. Amara did not emerge. Only Lyric remained, with her song, with the shadow of a face he could never forget. A sudden chill moved through him, because the question he had pushed down kept returning. If this girl is who I think she is. "What now?" His hand twitched at his side. "Walk away," his mind ordered. "Leave the ghost where you found it." But his heart, His heart was already moving closer. Lyric finished another verse, eyes closing again, unaware of the storm in the man standing before her. Daniel Cross, 26 years old, once a husband, now a stranger in the crowd, realized he was no longer listening to a child sing. He was listening to the past call him by name, and it refused to let go. Daniel didn't remember choosing to follow her. His feet simply moved, pulled by something stronger than reason. Lyric had gathered her coins, tucked the ukulele under one arm, and slipped into the current of the crowd. She walked with surprising certainty for someone so small, weaving through tourists and late-night shoppers. Daniel trailed a few steps behind, his pulse uneven. He told himself he was being reckless. But the truth was simpler. He couldn't let her vanish. The walking street narrowed into a quieter block where neon faded to shadow. Lyric's boots tapped against the cracked pavement, her bag thumping lightly at her side. She never looked back. Daniel wondered if this was her routine, if she had walked this path alone too many times. At a crosswalk, she paused, glancing up at the red light. Her shoulders sagged, just briefly, in the way children do when the world feels heavier than it should. Daniel stepped closer. "Need help carrying that?" he asked, his voice careful. Lyric looked up, eyebrows arched in suspicion. "You're still here." He gave a half smile. Seems so. For a heartbeat, she studied him, as though weighing the risk. Then she shrugged. "If you want, but I can carry it. I always do." Daniel took the larger bag anyway. The weight jolted his arm, heavier than it looked. Medicine bottles clinked inside. His chest tightened. They walked together in uneven silence. Daniel searched for words that wouldn't betray the storm in his mind. Finally, he asked, "Your mother, she taught you that song?" Lyric nodded. "She says it was her favorite once. Before she got sick. She says music remembers what people forget." The words pierced him. Amara used to say the same thing, almost the same phrasing, as if carved into memory. He swallowed, fighting the rush of recognition. She must be wise. Lyric smiled faintly. She is, even when she's tired. Even when she coughs so hard I get scared. Her honesty cut through the night air sharper than any siren. Daniel bit back 1,000 questions. He wanted to ask her mother's name outright. He wanted to hear Amara spoken aloud. But he couldn't, not yet. Not here. Instead, he said, "You shouldn't have to carry this alone." Lyric's gaze flicked to him, curious. "Mama says we're stronger than people think, even when it doesn't look like it." Daniel didn't answer, because her words sounded exactly like something Amara would have told their child. They turned a corner. The street grew quieter, lined with small houses leaning into one another like weary companions. Faint porch lights flickered. Lyric stopped in front of a narrow home with peeling blue paint and a single red door, chipped but bold against the dusk. She grinned. "We're here." Daniel froze at the sight. Something about the red door struck him. A symbol, a warning, an invitation. He wasn't sure which. Lyric pushed it open without hesitation. "Mama, I'm back! And someone helped me." Daniel followed cautiously into the small entryway. The air smelled faintly of eucalyptus tea and old wood. The house was cramped but warm, cluttered with children's drawings and stacks of books balanced like uneven towers. And then, the doorway ahead filled with a figure. She looked thinner than memory, her cheekbones sharper, her posture more guarded. A robe hung loosely on her shoulders, but her eyes, those eyes, still held the fire he had once fallen into, Amara. 6 years collapsed between them in a breath. Her gaze met his, and the room seemed to contract. Silence stretched until even Lyric fidgeted. "This is Daniel," the girl said brightly, oblivious to the quake in the air. "He helped me carry the bags. He's nice. He gave me too much money, though." Amara's lips parted, closed again. Her hand tightened on the doorframe as if steadying herself against the sight. Daniel couldn't speak. His throat locked. The only word that lived there was her name, but it felt forbidden now. Amara broke the silence first. "Come in," she said quietly. "Not warm, not cold, just measured." Daniel stepped forward, heart pounding. and for the first time in 6 years, stood again inside the same air as the woman he had lost. The living room was small, but it pulsed with traces of life. Children's drawings curled on the refrigerator. A blanket half-folded hung off the couch. The scent of ginger tea mixed with eucalyptus lingered in the air, sharp yet comforting. Daniel stood awkwardly near the doorway, clutching the strap of the bag he had carried, as though it could excuse his presence. Amara moved slowly, her robe dragging slightly across the floor. She took the bag from Lyric with a quiet nod. Her hands trembled faintly, enough for Daniel to notice, though she masked it by turning toward the counter. Lyric skipped into the kitchen, rummaging for cups. "We should have dinner," she announced cheerfully. "There's enough soup for everyone." Amara shot Daniel a look, sharp, assessing. "She talks too much sometimes," she said flatly. Daniel managed a thin smile. "It's a gift." The words landed strangely between them. Amara busied herself with the pot on the stove. Daniel stepped closer, then stopped, unsure if crossing the room would be intrusion. He wanted to ask 100 questions, but none found their way out. Lyric returned with bowls, clattering them onto the table. "Sit," she ordered, pointing at the couch. Her command carried such innocence that Daniel obeyed without protest. He sat, the old springs groaning beneath him. Dinner was simple, soup reheated, toast sliced unevenly. Lyric filled the silence with stories about school, a neighbor's dog, her dream of building a treehouse. She spoke with the breathless energy of a child who didn't yet know how to hide hope. Daniel listened, but his gaze kept drifting back to Amara. She moved carefully, conserving strength, but her presence filled the small room with gravity. Every flicker of her expression carried echoes of the woman he remembered. The fire in her arguments, the tenderness in her laughter, the steel in her silences. When Lyric excused herself to fetch a blanket from her room, the quiet that followed pressed heavy. Amara faced him. "Why are you here, Daniel?" Her voice was low, not accusing, but edged with a fatigue deeper than illness. He swallowed. "I didn't know it was her. I heard the song. I followed." Amara's eyes flickered, a brief betrayal of emotion. She steadied herself. "She shouldn't have been out there alone." "I know," he said quickly. "That's why I stayed." Her mouth tightened. "She's always alone." "I don't have anyone else." The words stabbed sharper than intended. Daniel leaned forward, his hands clenched. "Amara, I didn't expect—" She cut him off. "You didn't expect me to survive? To raise her on my own? You thought silence would erase us?" Daniel flinched. "I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" Her eyes glinted, not with anger, but with a grief that had aged into strength. "Of choosing me? Of standing up when they looked at us like we were wrong?" Memories crashed over him. The restaurant hostess who seated them near the bathroom. His mother's cold remark about children who never fit in. The meetings where colleagues smirked at Amara's presence but said nothing aloud. And he had swallowed it, stayed silent, telling himself silence kept peace. "I thought I was protecting us," he whispered. "No." Her voice cracked but didn't rise. "You were protecting yourself. And silence is what broke me." The truth hollowed the air between them. Daniel lowered his gaze, shame burning his chest. For years he had carried the story that he was decent, fair. But decency without courage had left Amara alone, carrying their child unseen. Lyric padded back into the room, dragging a blanket. She yawned and collapsed onto the couch beside him, curling into the fabric. "It's cold in my room," she murmured. Amara brushed a curl from her daughter's forehead. Her tenderness struck Daniel like a wound reopening. He whispered, "She doesn't know, does she?" Amara froze, then shook her head faintly. "There are things she doesn't need to know." "Not yet." Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to confess everything at once, that he saw the resemblance, that he already knew what blood connected them. But the words stuck. Instead, he looked at the girl sleeping gently against his arm, her breath steady, and for the first time since Amara had left, Daniel felt the silence not as an escape, but as a weight crushing him from within. He could no longer bear it. Night pressed down heavy on the small house. but Daniel did not sleep. Lyric had curled into the blanket on the couch, her breathing soft and even. Amara sat in the armchair, arms folded, gaze drifting toward the window but unfocused, as if she were watching something only she could see. The lamp's glow carved shadows across her cheekbones, and Daniel felt the ache of years he had wasted. He shifted restlessly. Silence gnawed at him. Every second without words felt like another betrayal. But what words could possibly bridge 6 years of absence? His eyes fell to the ukulele leaning against the wall. Its strings caught the faint light, and the memory of that song throbbed in his chest. He could not shake the thought. If Lyric was his daughter, then he had abandoned more than a wife. He had abandoned a life. His phone buzzed in his coat pocket, startling him. He slipped it out, careful not to wake Lyric. The message was from an old colleague, a reminder about tomorrow's meeting. Daniel stared at it, then deleted the notification. What did meetings matter now? Numbers, deals, contracts, none of them had weight against the possibility that the child in the next room carried his name in her blood. The urge hit him suddenly, fierce and undeniable. Proof. He needed proof. He rose quietly and slipped into the bathroom. His reflection in the mirror looked like a stranger, haunted, unsettled. He spotted a pink hairbrush on the sink, bristles tangled with soft brown curls. His hands shook as he reached for it. This is wrong, he thought. This is invasion. But leaving the question unanswered felt worse. He plucked 2 strands of hair, slid them into a small plastic bag he found in the kitchen drawer, and tucked it deep into his coat. His heart hammered, guilt and determination locked in combat. Back in the living room, Amara had dozed in the chair. Her face, even in sleep, carried lines of exhaustion, but also resilience. Daniel hesitated, almost confessing then and there. Instead, he lowered himself onto the far end of the couch, eyes fixed on the ceiling. Hours passed. The house settled into quiet creaks and sighs, but Daniel lay awake, gripping his coat as though it anchored him. The next morning, he stepped outside under the pale light of dawn. He made a call, his voice low. "Minj, I need a favor." On the other end, a pause. "What kind?" "Discrete testing, DNA, fast." Min, his former assistant, trusted him enough not to ask unnecessary questions. "I know someone in diagnostics." "Give me 24 hours," Daniel exhaled, tension coiling inside him. "Thank you." When he returned inside, Lyric was already awake, scribbling in a notebook at the table. She glanced up, grinning. "You're bad at being quiet." "I heard you leave." Daniel tried to smile. "Couldn't sleep." "What were you doing?" "Just making a call." She nodded, satisfied, and bent back to her page. He leaned over to see a drawing of a crooked castle with 3 stick figures in front. One tall, one medium, one small. Daniel stared longer than he meant to. "That's me," Lyric explained, pointing to the smallest figure. "That's Mama, and that's—" She hesitated, then shrugged. "Someone Mama says got lost. But maybe he's finding his way back." Daniel's throat tightened. He forced a steady tone. "That's a good drawing," Lyric grinned. "I'm better at music." She picked up the ukulele and strummed a clumsy chord. "Want me to play again?" He nodded, though his heart wasn't ready. The melody stumbled, rose, and stumbled again. But Daniel felt every note like a confession. He had once thought silence was protection. Now he understood it was a prison. And as her song filled the small room, Daniel Cross knew that in 24 hours, his life would either collapse or begin again. The day stretched unbearably slow. Daniel tried to act normal, but every tick of the clock pulled him tighter. He stayed close to the house, offering to fix a loose hinge, fetching groceries, anything to disguise his restlessness. Amara watched him cautiously, suspicion flickering in her eyes, but she said nothing. Lyric, oblivious, filled the hours with chatter, darting between him and her mother like a bridge neither of them knew how to cross. By evening, the weight in Daniel's pocket felt like a live wire. His phone buzzed at last. He slipped outside, pacing the narrow strip of yard behind the house. Min's voice was calm, almost too calm. "It's done. 99.9%. She's yours." The words didn't crash. They settled like stone, heavy, irrefutable. Daniel closed his eyes, breath stuttering. "Thank you," he whispered. His hand trembled as he ended the call. For a moment he stood frozen, staring at the dusk-darkened sky. The world around him hadn't shifted, but inside everything had tilted. When he returned, Amara was on the couch, Lyric curled against her. The television murmured quietly, but neither seemed to watch. Amara's eyes met his, sharp, searching. She rose slowly, motioned for him to follow into the kitchen. She didn't waste time. "You did a test," Daniel faltered. "How? You don't come back from nothing after 6 years and suddenly linger. You looked at her like a mirror. You don't hide it well." He swallowed hard, pulling the folded paper from his coat. He placed it on the counter, untouched. Amara stared at it, then away. "I already knew." Daniel's chest tightened. "Why didn't you tell me?" Her shoulders trembled, though her voice held steady. "Because I didn't want her to grow up thinking she was an accident. Or a trap. I knew what people would say. That I kept her to chain you. That a woman like me, brown, tired, unseen, would invent anything to hold a man like you." Her words struck like glass breaking in his chest. "I never would have believed that," he whispered. "Wouldn't you?" Her eyes glistened. "You couldn't even stand when strangers questioned us at dinner tables. How could I trust you'd stand when it was about her?" Daniel opened his mouth, closed it again. Shame burned hotter than fire. Amara exhaled slowly, pressing her palms to the counter. "I chose silence. Not out of hate, but survival." The kitchen fell quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. Daniel finally spoke. "I missed everything." Her first word. Her first step. All of it. Amara's gaze softened, just slightly. So did she. The air shifted. Behind them, a small voice broke the silence. "Missed what?" They turned. Lyric stood in the hallway, hair tousled from sleep, eyes wide with confusion. She patted closer, glancing between them. Her gaze fell on the folded paper on the counter. "What is that? Why are you crying?" Amara froze. Daniel dropped to one knee, bringing himself eye level with the girl. His chest tightened as he placed a hand over his heart. "Lyric," he said gently. "Sometimes families don't start the way they should. Sometimes people don't show up when they should have. But I need to tell you something very important." Her brows furrowed. "What?" Daniel's voice cracked, but he forced the words out. "I'm your dad." The silence that followed was unbearable. Lyric blinked once, twice. Her lips quivered. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" she whispered. Amara knelt beside them, tears slipping free. "Because I was scared, baby. Not of you, of the world, of what it might do to you. I wanted you to grow up strong first and loved without questions hanging over your head." Lyric's chin trembled. "Was I a mistake?" The question sliced Daniel open. He pulled her into his arms, holding her small frame as if it could anchor him. "No, never. You are the best thing I never knew I needed. And I will spend every day proving that. If you'll let me," Lyric sniffled, wiping her cheek with the back of her hand. Slowly, a smile broke through the tears. "So, does this mean I get 2 Christmas presents now?" The heaviness cracked. Amara let out a startled laugh, covering her mouth. Daniel chuckled through the tightness in his throat. He hugged them both, tighter than he had ever held anything in his life. And in that fragile circle of arms and tears, the silence that had haunted them for 6 years finally began to break. It started with a cough, not sharp, but deep, the kind that pulled Daniel from a restless half-sleep on the couch. He sat up instantly, ears straining. Lyric stirred in her blanket on the floor, blinking groggily. The sound came again, low and rough, from Amara's bedroom. "Mama?" Lyric whispered, scrambling to her feet. She padded down the hall, Daniel close behind. The door creaked open to reveal Amara lying on her side, a blanket clutched against her. Her skin glistened with sweat, her breaths shallow. The sight jolted Daniel harder than any boardroom crisis ever had. He rushed to her side. "Amara?" Her eyes fluttered open. "Water!" she rasped. Daniel was gone and back in seconds, a glass in his hand. He held it steady as she sipped, coughing again. When she leaned back, her face looked pale, fragile. "You've got a fever," he murmured, brushing a damp curl from her forehead. The heat under his palm was alarming. Lyric stood in the doorway, arms wrapped around herself. She gets like this sometimes, usually passes. But she didn't eat much yesterday. Daniel crouched beside the bed, his jaw tightening. We need to keep her hydrated. And food, something warm. He moved to the kitchen, fumbling through cabinets like a man chasing salvation. Broth, rice, ginger, onions. His hands shook as he chopped clumsily, knife scraping too hard against the board. He'd built deals worth millions, yet here, faced with soup, he felt useless. Lyric climbed onto the counter, swinging her legs. You hold that knife like it's gonna bite you, she teased gently. You've never cooked before, huh? Not unless microwaving counts, Daniel admitted. It doesn't, she declared, grinning. Okay, executive chef disaster, let me assist. You do the stirring. I'll supervise. For the first time in hours, Daniel smiled faintly. Together they worked, clumsy but determined. Lyric added herbs with exaggerated flair, narrating the process like a cooking show host. And now we sprinkle the magic healing powder. Salt, Daniel corrected. Magic powder, she insisted. When the soup finally simmered, fragrant and imperfect, they carried it carefully to Amara's bedside. She managed a few spoonfuls, leaning back with a sigh. Thank you, she whispered. It's just soup, Daniel replied. Her eyes opened, hazy but intent. No, it's presence. That's what matters. The words landed deep. Presence, something he had failed to give for 6 years. That night, Daniel stayed near her bed. Lyric curled in a sleeping bag beside him. The room was dim, lit only by the faint glow of a night lamp. At one point, Amara stirred, half-conscious, and her hand brushed against his. She didn't pull back. Instead, her fingers closed weakly over his, a fragile anchor in the dark. I'm here, he whispered, and for the first time, he meant it with every fiber of his being. The next morning, Amara's fever had broken slightly. She walked slowly into the kitchen, steadying herself against the counter. Daniel was already there, clashing with Lyric over hot chocolate. It's not dessert, he argued. It absolutely is, Lyric countered, marshmallows spilling from her small fist. And she'll agree with me. Right, Mom? Amara managed a tired smile. I plead the fifth, Daniel and Lyric laughed. For a fleeting moment, the kitchen felt like home. Not broken, not patched, but whole. Later, as Melody painted in the living room, Amara sat quietly with Daniel at the kitchen table. Her hands trembled slightly as she lifted her cup of tea. She looked at him carefully. You remember the hotel in Richmond? For our anniversary, Daniel nodded. Her gaze hardened. You don't remember the lobby, do you? He frowned, confused. They wouldn't let me check in alone, even with the reservation in my name. The clerk asked if I was the nanny. You walked in 5 minutes later. He changed his tone so fast. But you, she swallowed. You said nothing. The memory hit him like ice water. He remembered. He remembered every detail, every cowardly silence. I thought ignoring it would avoid a scene, he said quietly. It was already a scene, Amara replied. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Just one where I stood alone, Daniel's throat closed. He reached across the table, taking her trembling hand. I was wrong. I was a coward, she held his gaze, unflinching. When you're silent, they win. He nodded, resolve forming like steel. Then I'm done being silent. Before Amara could answer, Lyric burst in, an apron tied crookedly around her waist, a smear of paint across her cheek. Did I miss something serious? Because this kitchen smells like honesty and regret? Amara laughed so hard she covered her face. Daniel chuckled, shaking his head. Come here, sass machine. He scooped Lyric into his arms as she squealed, and for the first time in years, laughter drowned out the silence. It was Lyric who insisted they go out. Not errands. Not groceries. Fun, she declared one Saturday, arms crossed with exaggerated seriousness. Daniel hesitated. Crowds had never been his choice, and Amara still looked pale. But Lyric's determination was disarming, and when Amara finally sighed and said, maybe some air would do us good, Daniel gave in. The city park stretched wide beneath a crisp autumn sky, leaves spinning like coins in the breeze. Families picnicked, children shrieked from the playground, A busker strummed guitar near the fountain. For the first time in years, Daniel wasn't rushing anywhere. He carried the picnic bag. Amara walked beside him, scarf loose around her neck. Lyric skipped ahead, already pointing toward the carnival ride set up near the duck pond. "That one!" she shouted. "The ghost train!" Daniel blinked. "The what?" Amara chuckled softly, though her shoulders tensed. "It's not really a train, just a tunnel ride with flashing lights and bad skeletons. Tradition, apparently," Lyric clapped. "Come on!" They bought tickets and joined the short line. Teenagers giggled ahead of them, the scent of cotton candy thick in the air. Amara's fingers tightened on her purse strap, her eyes fixed forward. Daniel noticed. When the operator waved them into a cart barely large enough for three, Lyric scrambled in first, Daniel second, Amara last. The cart jerked forward, darkness swallowing them whole. Screeches blared from hidden speakers. Cobwebs brushed their faces. Glowing eyes blinked from foam skulls. Lyric squealed with delight, clinging to the edge of the cart. Then the lights cut entirely. Blackness. Daniel felt Amara stiffen beside him. Her breath quickened, shallow and panicked. Her hand shot out, gripping his wrist with desperate force. "Amara!" he whispered, barely audible under the canned screams. "It's okay. I'm here." Her head dropped against his shoulder. She trembled, rigid, not from cheap theatrics, but from something older, heavier. He wrapped an arm around her, not tight, just steady. Enough for her to lean. Enough so she wasn't alone in the dark. The lights flickered back on, revealing rubber bats and plastic coffins. But Daniel barely noticed. He only felt the slow easing of her grip, the faint tremor still running through her. When the cart rolled out into daylight again, Lyric bounced out, laughing. "That was so lame, Mama. You screamed like 5 times. Amara stepped off slowly, straightening her coat. She didn't answer. They walked to a grassy patch near the swings. Daniel laid out the blanket. Amara poured juice into cups with hands that still trembled. Her voice was low when she finally spoke. "I didn't mean to grab you." Daniel shook his head. "You didn't scare me." "It wasn't the ride," she admitted. "It's the dark. I never used to be afraid. But after I left, there were nights when everything was dark and I didn't know how to keep her safe. It's not ghosts that haunt me. It's being invisible in the daylight." The breeze lifted a strand of hair across her cheek. Daniel reached instinctively to brush it back, hesitated. Her eyes flicked toward him. "You can," she said quietly. His hand touched her hair, gentle, deliberate. She looked at him, really looked. And something unspoken passed between them. Recognition of wounds, memory of love, hope for what might still be. When he leaned in, it wasn't rushed. It wasn't desperate. It was quiet, warm, and real. Their lips met briefly, then again, softer. The world stilled. Across the grass, Lyric returned with a popsicle, dirt streaking her jeans. She raised an eyebrow, grinning wide. Well, she called. "Do I need to give you 2 a minute? Or are we officially in a rom-com now?" Amara laughed, cheeks flushed. Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. "We were just talking. With your mouths?" Lyric teased. "That's new." She plopped down on the blanket, sighing dramatically. "Y'all are cute. Weird, but cute." Amara reached for Daniel's hand, and this time, she didn't let go. That evening, as they returned home, Lyric lingered at her mother's door. "Mama?" Amara turned. "You were happy today," Lyric said softly. "Like really happy. I like that." Amara pulled her close, whispering against her hair. "Me too, baby." Later, Lyric scribbled in her journal by flashlight. Her handwriting wobbled, but her words carried weight beyond her years. "Today we screamed in a ghost train," Mama cried. He held her. Then they kissed. It was weird, but good weird. I think maybe families don't start perfect. They start small and brave and a little messy. But maybe that's enough. And for the first time, their house didn't feel like a place where things had broken. It felt like a place where something new could grow. The morning after the ghost train, the house carried a new kind of stillness. Not the brittle silence of strangers tolerating each other, but the tentative quiet of people relearning how to breathe in the same rhythm. Amara moved more lightly, less guarded. Daniel brewed coffee for 3, even if Lyric was still too young to drink it. And Lyric herself, forever the spark, stirred her cereal slower than usual, eyes thoughtful. It wasn't until later, while she helped Daniel dust old books in the den, that the words spilled out. She held up a faded photo, Daniel in college robes beside a stern older man in a gray suit. "Did you ever think of naming your kid after you? Like Daniel Jr.?" Daniel chuckled, brushing dust from his spine. "Maybe once or twice, but I figured if I had a child, they'd earn their own name. Not mine." Lyric pressed the photo to her chest, expression suddenly serious. "What if I wanted to choose?" Daniel froze. "Choose what, sweetheart?" She took a deep breath, eyes flicking toward the hall as if checking for Amara. "I want to change my last name." "To Adams." The air shifted. Daniel blinked. "What makes you say that?" "It's not that I don't love Mama's name, I do. But I want to be part of both of you. Officially. I'm tired of feeling like I only belong halfway." Her voice cracked slightly. "I don't want to explain myself every time someone asks why it's different. I want it to make sense to me." Daniel's throat tightened. He set the photo down gently, fighting the sudden sting in his eyes. "Did you tell your mom this yet?" Lyric shook her head. "Not yet. I wanted to see what you thought first. Do you think it's dumb?" He crouched to meet her eyes, voice unsteady. "I think it's one of the bravest things anyone's ever said to me." That evening, after dinner, Lyric finally said it aloud at the table. "I want to change my name." Amara set down her cup of tea, brow raised. "To what?" "Lyric Adams. Or maybe Lyric Amara Adams," she added quickly, glancing at her mother with hope. Amara's expression softened, but she didn't answer right away. She looked at Daniel, then back at her daughter. "Is this about wanting to feel more connected to your father?" Lyric nodded. "It's about choosing who I am. Choosing both of you. I'm proud of where I come from, but I don't want to feel like I have to justify it anymore. I just want my name to make sense." Amara leaned back slowly, arms folded. Her silence stretched, not as rejection but contemplation. Finally she spoke, voice gentle. "You don't have to carry my name to carry my love, baby. But if this feels right to you, then yes. Lyric Amara Adams sounds just right." Lyric's smile bloomed like sunlight breaking clouds. Daniel exhaled, realizing he'd been holding his breath. "Well," he said, clearing his throat, "looks like we've got paperwork to fill out." The following week, the school held a small acknowledgement ceremony in Lyric's homeroom. No banners, no cake, just a teacher's soft speech and clapping classmates. But to Lyric, it felt monumental. She stood at the front in a simple blue dress, a pin with her new initials shining proudly. Daniel and Amara sat side by side in the back row, watching with a stillness that was half pride, half awe. "Hi," Lyric began, her voice firm. "I'm Lyric Amara Adams, and I'm proud of every part of that name because it comes from people who fought hard to be a family again." The room erupted in applause. A few kids cheered. The teacher dabbed her eyes with a tissue, but not everyone clapped. In the row behind Daniel, a woman leaned close to her companion and muttered, just loud enough, "Changing names now, huh? Anything for a scholarship." The words cut sharp. Daniel's jaw clenched. He turned slightly, ready to unleash fury, but Amara's hand pressed into his, firm. She whispered, "Not here. Not now. Let her moment be hers." He forced himself to nod, though his shoulders remained stiff, anger simmering. Lyric hadn't heard, and that mattered most. That night, the three of them celebrated quietly at a local diner. Chicken tenders for Lyric, soup for Amara, a burger for Daniel. Neon buzzed outside the window. Lyric pointed a fry at Daniel. "So now that I'm officially an Adams, do I get your terrible fashion sense too?" Daniel feigned outrage. "Excuse me? You wear ties at home," she accused. Amara laughed, shaking her head. "She's got you there," Daniel gasped dramatically. "This is the thanks I get? After soup and paperwork?" Lyric giggled. "I love you. But I'm still hiding your sandals next summer." The laughter came easily now, not fragile. Not forced, it wrapped around them like a quilt, proof that love could grow even in the cracks of what had once been broken. The knock came 2 days later, sharp, deliberate, like a note struck too hard on a piano. Amara opened the door and froze. Priscilla Bradley, immaculate trench coat, lipstick sharp as a blade, heels far too high for a casual visit. She stepped inside without waiting for permission, her smile a delicate curve that pretended kindness while dripping disdain. "Hello, Amara," she said smoothly. "I was in the area. Thought I'd drop by. Hector mentions Melody so much lately." She caught herself, eyes flicking at the correction. "Daniel, I mean. I simply had to meet this little star." Amara closed the door slowly, sealing the tension in the room. "Lyrics upstairs." Priscilla's gaze swept the modest living room, lingering on the pillow fort remnants and a half-finished science project on the counter. She sniffed softly. "Charming. You really kept things simple." Amara's voice stayed even. "We call it living within means." "Of course," Priscilla purred. "Though I must admit I never imagined Daniel settling for this sort of setup." "He's not settling," Amara cut in quietly. "He's choosing." The word landed like a warning. Before Priscilla could respond, Lyric bounded down the stairs wearing a sparkly headband and mismatched socks. "Mama, who's the lady who smells like my teacher's office?" Priscilla chuckled, bending slightly. "I'm a friend of your father's. He talks about you constantly." Lyric tilted her head. "That's weird. He usually talks about Mama." Amara bit back a grin. Priscilla's smile faltered. "You're quite the sharp one." "Takes after your mother, I suppose." Lyric folded her arms. "Is that supposed to be a compliment?" Priscilla's eyes flickered, her tone tightening. "Just an observation. You're a very spirited little brown girl pretending to be sweet. It happened in a heartbeat." Amara stepped forward and slapped her. The sound cracked through the air like thunder. Priscilla staggered back, eyes wide, hand flying to her cheek. "You don't talk to my daughter like that," Amara said, her voice low, final. Silence hung heavy. Then Priscilla straightened, smoothing her coat with forced dignity. "This won't last. He always returns to his world." Just then, the front door opened again. Daniel stepped in, groceries in hand, confusion etched across his face. "Everything okay?" "Handled," Amara said, steady. Priscilla swept past him without another word. Daniel looked from her retreating figure to Amara, unsettled. "What just happened?" Amara exhaled slowly, a weary smile tugging at her lips. "I think she'll keep her distance now." For the first time in weeks, the house felt wholly theirs, but the tension lingered, like smoke after a fire. Amara moved through the house with a new steadiness, as though something had settled deep in her bones. Lyric sang more freely, doodled wedding dresses on scraps of paper, and Daniel, though quiet, carried an expression Amara hadn't seen in years. A man ready to stay, he proposed on a Wednesday evening, folding laundry at the end of the couch. No kneeling, no ring box, just a quiet sentence. "I want to marry you again." Amara froze, a shirt half folded in her lap. She searched his eyes as though reading fine print. Then she nodded once. "Then let's do it right this time." The wedding was set for a Saturday afternoon at the Langford Grand, a restored hotel with marble floors and a rooftop terrace overlooking the city. Amara had never imagined herself in such a place, not because she didn't dream, but because she had learned early not to. Daniel insisted. She deserved recognition, he said. They all did. The day arrived clear and bright. Guests filled gold-framed chairs, a quartet playing softly. Amara stepped onto the marble walkway in an ivory satin gown, simple but commanding. Her hair swept low, earrings catching sunlight. She walked alone, chin lifted. Daniel waited in a charcoal suit. Lyric stood beside him in seafoam green, bouquet nearly half her size. "You look like a movie star, Mama," she whispered as Amara passed. The officiant's words blurred into background. Their vows were their own. Daniel's voice was steady, low. "I failed you once by not standing beside you when it mattered. I won't make that mistake again. I want to be the man who walks beside you, behind you, and sometimes a step ahead, just to open the door." Amara's eyes glistened. "I left because I couldn't breathe. But I never stopped loving you. This version of you, the one who shows up, who listens, who holds my hand when it shakes, I say yes to him." Every day, they exchanged rings. Lyric handed them over with a trembling smile. And in that moment, she was no longer just the girl who once sang on a street corner. She was family, fully, forever. The Langford Grand's chandeliers still glittered in Amara's memory days later. But life, as always, had a way of testing joy. On Monday morning, Lyric rushed into the kitchen, backpack bouncing, her grin wide enough to light the room. "Today's the big audition," she announced. "Princess Liana." "Lead role," Amara blinked. "You didn't tell us it was today?" "Surprise," Lyric laughed, already halfway out the door. "Wish me luck." Daniel and Amara exchanged a look, equal parts worry and pride. The audition went better than Lyric had dared hope. Her lines rang clear, her posture regal. Even the music teacher's nod held approval. And when the cast list went up the next morning, her name sat proudly at the top. Lyric Catherine Adams, Princess Liana. She ran home, waving the sheet like a flag. The joy was contagious. Daniel swept her up in his arms, spinning her. Amara pressed the paper to her chest, her smile soft but fierce. For 3 days, the house glowed with her excitement. Lyric rehearsed lines in the hallway, sang while brushing her teeth, even choreographed dramatic bows in the living room. Then came the 4th day. She dropped her backpack at the door, face shadowed. Amara frowned. "Baby, what happened?" They gave it to someone else." Lyric's voice cracked. "They said it wasn't about performance, just that they wanted a look that fit better." Daniel's jaw tightened. "What look?" Lyric didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her brown skin spoke for her. That night, after Lyric had gone to bed, Amara sat across from Daniel at the kitchen table. The lamplight carved lines of anger across both their faces. "You know what this is?" Amara said flatly. "It's not about costumes, not about voice. It's because their idea of a princess doesn't have her skin." Daniel's fists clenched. "I'm not letting them do this to her." "Not again?" The steel in his tone was unfamiliar even to him. The next morning, he walked into the school office wearing his sharpest suit. Calm, controlled, dangerous. The principal, a woman in her 50s with a brittle smile, welcomed him stiffly. "Mr. Adams, I understand you're upset." "I'm not upset," Daniel replied evenly. "I'm here because my daughter was stripped of a role she earned." "Not because she lacked talent. Because you and your staff decided she doesn't look the part." The principal folded her hands. "We made a creative decision." "You made a discriminatory decision," Daniel cut in. His voice sharpened. "You taught a child that excellence means nothing if her face doesn't match your fairy tale." Her brittle smile faltered. "We are an inclusive school." "Then act like it," he said, standing. "She will still perform. We'll host our own production, and you're welcome to attend." By afternoon, Amara was on the phone with the community center, securing chairs. She printed flyers at the library. Daniel tapped every connection he had, calling in favors. Within days, a small downtown theater was theirs. Lyric's classmates volunteered, eager to help. Costumes, props, lighting, every detail carried the stamp of community effort. Word spread. A colleague of Daniel's whispered to a local reporter. Soon, a news camera rolled at rehearsal, capturing Lyric twirling in a gown Amara had stitched by hand. Opening night came faster than expected. The theater buzzed with families and neighbors. Children giggled in the aisles. Parents balanced programs on their laps. Backstage, Lyric's hands shook as she peeked past the curtain. "You ready?" Amara whispered, squeezing her shoulders. Lyric nodded. "I was born ready." The curtain rose, Lyric transformed. Every line soared. Every gesture held grace. She wasn't pretending to be a princess. She was one. When the final bow came, the audience surged to their feet, clapping, cheering, stomping. Cameras flashed. Among the crowd near the back, the school principal stood stiff-armed, face unreadable. Daniel saw her. But for once, silence was victory. The next morning, the school issued a public apology. A letter went home to every parent. Lyric's original casting was formally acknowledged as an error of bias. They invited her to speak at assembly. She declined. Instead, she returned to class with her head high. When asked if she'd join drama club again, she smiled. Only if they learn what royalty really looks like. That evening, the family gathered in their living room. Amara knitted, Daniel read, Lyric sketched. They thought I'd be too much, Lyric mused. Too different. But all I did was shine where they tried to dim me. Amara nodded. And you did it with grace, not noise. That's what made it powerful, Daniel added, voice firm. And you did it with your own stage, Lyric grinned. Next time, glitter explosions. No glitter in my house, Amara groaned. Daniel chuckled. We'll negotiate, and as night settled, the weight of injustice gave way to something stronger. The memory not of defeat, but of defiance and grace. 10 years slipped by like pages in Lyric's journal. The girl who once strummed her ukulele on a cold street corner was now 16. Taller, sharper, her curls wilder, her wit quicker. But her heart still carried that same song, the melody that had cracked Daniel's silence open a decade earlier. One Sunday morning, she sat by her window with the worn leather-bound journal in her lap. The pages smelled faintly of lavender and ink. She flipped to the first entry, reading aloud softly. The first time I sang in front of him, I didn't know he was my dad. But I remember his eyes. They didn't just look at me. They recognized me. Like a melody he'd forgotten he knew. Downstairs, the kitchen buzzed with chaos. The smell of cinnamon pancakes mingled with the squeals of a toddler. Caden Justice Adams, age 2, full of opinions and applesauce. The name had been Lyric's idea. She'd pitched it with all the seriousness of a lawyer making closing arguments. Caden, she'd explained, for cadence, because we got a second chance. And justice, because that's what we fought for. Daniel had tried to argue. Amara had smiled. In the end, the name stuck. Now Daniel stood at the stove in pajama pants, humming tunelessly while flipping pancakes. Once he had commanded boardrooms with clipped phrases and polished shoes. Now his titles were stick finger wiper, wagon puller, late-night lullaby singer. He still consulted, but only on his terms. Most days, his loyalty was to the sticky chaos of home. Amara came in from her morning walk, cheeks pink, arms full of roses from her flower shop. Chord flowers. The name was Lyric's, too. A chord, she'd said when they brainstormed, is more than one note. That's us now. The shop had given Amara more than income. It gave her space to breathe, to create, to root herself again. She set the roses down, stole a kiss from Daniel's cheek, and poured coffee. Their eyes met for a second, carrying a conversation without words. Lyric, watching from the stairs, groaned playfully. You two are gross. You're the one who cried at her middle school play when the prince kissed the princess. Daniel shot back. Lyric raised her hands in surrender. Touché. Caden clapped from his high chair, oblivious, demanding more, as applesauce dripped from his spoon. Later that afternoon, the whole family piled onto the porch. Daniel wheeled out the red wagon packed with sandwiches, juice boxes, and a plaid blanket. Picnic time, he announced, like a drum major. Caden squealed. Lyric rolled her eyes. Amara laughed. At the park, they spread the blanket under a wide oak. Families milled nearby, voices and laughter echoing. Daniel unpacked food while Amara settled Caden in her lap. Lyric sprawled on her back, notebook in hand. The clouds look like treble clefs, she mused. Daniel squinted. That one looks like your old drama teacher who gave you the tree roll. Amara chuckled. She hated talent. Lyric laughed, scribbling a sketch of the sky. As the sun dipped low, Caden fell asleep, clutching bread in his tiny fist. Amara stroked his curls. Daniel leaned back on his elbows. Lyric closed her notebook, eyes soft. We're not the kind of family that looks perfect on paper, she had written earlier that morning. But we are music, we are rhythm, and we've found our harmony. She glanced at her parents, her mother's quiet grace, her father's steady presence. Once broken, now rebuilt. Not flawless, but whole. That night, the house settled into its imperfect symphony. Caden snored softly in his crib. Amara arranged tomorrow's roses. Daniel hummed while folding laundry. Lyric sat cross-legged on her bed, journal open to a fresh page. They thought they could silence us. but they only taught us how to sing louder. Families don't have to start perfect. They just have to start. And when they choose to stay, even broken things can play again. Like chords. Like us. She tapped her pen thoughtfully, then added one last line before snapping the book shut. And this is just our opening verse. It was supposed to be an ordinary Monday lyric. Now 16 packed her bag for school, humming softly. Caden clattered toy blocks on the kitchen floor, babbling with the fierce intensity only toddlers could manage. Amara fussed with roses for the shop. Daniel buttoned his shirt slowly, savoring the rare calm of a morning without rushing. Then Lyric burst back into the kitchen, paper in hand, eyes sparkling. They posted the auditions. We're doing the Kingdom of the Dawn this semester, and I got the lead. Again, Amara's face lit up. Daniel pulled her into a playful spin, ignoring Lyric's mock protest. Dad, stop. I'm not 5. Princess Lyric, he teased, bowing exaggeratedly. For the rest of the week, the house hummed with her rehearsals. Lyric paced the hallway reciting lines, sang scales while brushing her teeth, even staged mock sword fights with a broom. Daniel and Amara traded amused glances, but their pride was unmistakable. The night before casting was finalized, Lyric came home quieter than usual. She sank into the couch, fiddling with her bracelet. Daniel frowned. What's wrong? They changed it, she murmured. They gave the part to someone else. Amara stiffened. Why? Lyric's eyes glistened. They said it wasn't my fault. Just that they wanted a different... Look! Silence dropped heavy. Daniel's jaw clenched. What kind of look? Lyric didn't answer. She didn't have to. Later that night, after Lyric had retreated to her room, Amara and Daniel sat at the kitchen table in low light. Amara's voice was sharp but steady. We've been here before. It's not about costumes. Not about skill. It's about skin. Daniel's hands balled into fists. Not this time. I'm not letting them take this from her. He rose so suddenly the chair scraped. For once, Amara didn't stop him. She just whispered, Then don't be silent. The next morning, Daniel walked into the principal's office like a storm in a tailored suit. The woman behind the desk forced a brittle smile. Mr. Adams, I understand your concern. No, Daniel cut in. His voice was even, controlled, dangerous. My daughter earned a role. You replaced her. Not because she lacked talent, but because she doesn't fit your picture of royalty. The principal bristled. We made a creative decision. You made a discriminatory one. His words cracked like glass. You've taught her that excellence means nothing if her face doesn't match your fairy tale. The principal's voice wavered. We are an inclusive school. Then act like it, Daniel said, rising. She will still perform. If not here, then on a stage of our own. And so they built one. Amara printed flyers at the library, borrowing chairs from the community center. Daniel called in every favor he'd ever banked, securing a small downtown theater. Neighbors donated fabric for costumes. Lyric's classmates volunteered, eager to help. The project grew like wildfire. What had started as a school play became a community movement. At rehearsal, Lyric trembled as she peeked past the curtain. A local news crew filmed her in Amara's hand-stitched gown. I was born ready, she whispered, though her knees knocked. The curtain rose. Lyric stepped into light and became something more than a girl playing pretend. She was command, grace, defiance wrapped in silk and sound. Her voice soared. Her posture radiated pride. When the final bow came, the audience erupted. Applause, cheers, stomps echoing off the walls. Among them, Daniel spotted the principal standing stiffly at the back. Her expression unreadable. He didn't care. Silence was no longer his weapon. Presence was. The next morning, the school sent a letter home. They admitted bias. They apologized. They offered Lyric a platform to speak at assembly. She declined. Instead, she returned to class, head high. When classmates asked if she'd rejoin drama club, she smiled, only if they've learned what royalty really looks like. That evening, in the living room, Amara knitted, Daniel read. Lyric sprawled on the rug, sketching a new gown. They thought I'd be too much, she said. Too different. But all I did was shine where they tried to dim me. Amara nodded. And you did it with grace. That's what made it powerful. Daniel leaned forward, voice low but firm. And you did it on your own stage. No one can take that away. Lyric grinned mischievously. Next time, glitter explosions, Amara groaned. No glitter in my house, Daniel chuckled. We'll negotiate. And in that laughter, the weight of injustice lifted, transformed into memory, a lesson carved deep. They could not silence her song. It had been 10 years since the first song, 10 years since Daniel, then a haunted man of 26, froze on a street corner when he heard a child's voice threading through the noise of the city. Now Melody Catherine Adams stood taller than him, curls untamed, wit sharpened by time. At 16, she was more than the girl who once sang with eyes closed and a ukulele pressed to her chest. She was a force. On a quiet Sunday morning, she sat by her bedroom window, journal open across her lap. Ink bled into the page as sunlight fell in golden lines. The first time I sang in front of Dad, I didn't know he was my dad, she wrote. But I remember his eyes. They didn't just look at me, they recognized me. Like a melody he had forgotten he knew. Downstairs, the scent of cinnamon pancakes rose. Family breakfast. No shoes, no rush. Just music from a small speaker competing with the clang of spoons. Caden Justice Adams, now 2, fiercely opinionated, sat in his high chair, launching applesauce at invisible dragons. His name had been Melody's idea. Caden for cadence, second chances. Justice for everything they had fought to reclaim. Daniel, once a CEO bound by marble lobbies and sharp clocks, now hummed in pajama pants, flipping pancakes. He still consulted sometimes, but only on his terms. Most days, he answered to sticky fingers and late-night dance parties in the living room. Amara slipped in through the back door, arms full of roses from her flower shop, chord and bloom. It was Melody who had named it. A chord is more than one note. Mama, it's what we are now. Amara kissed Daniel's cheek, poured coffee, and exchanged the kind of glance only years of breaking and mending could shape. From the stairs, Melody watched, grinning. You two are gross, she teased. Rom-com gross, she added, shaking her head. Amara raised an eyebrow. Says the girl who sobbed at the school play when the prince kissed the princess. Melody surrendered with a laugh. Touché. Later, on the porch, the family prepared for a picnic. Daniel pulled a red wagon packed with sandwiches and juice boxes. Amara carried a blanket. Melody clutched her notebook, scribbling one last line. We're not the kind of family that looks perfect on paper, but we are music. We are rhythm. And we've found our harmony. At the park, families scattered across the grass. Children shrieked on swings. Dogs barked in uneven chorus. They spread their blanket near the pond. Daniel handed Caden a sun hat, only for him to toss it defiantly into the water. Melody rolled onto her back, pointing at the clouds. They look like treble clefs today. Daniel followed her gaze. No, that one looks like your old drama teacher. The one who gave you the tree roll, Amara laughed. She hated talent. For a moment, they lay in easy silence, the kind that once eluded them. No longer heavy, no longer broken, just presence. That night, Melody sat at her desk, journal open again. She wrote slowly, deliberately. We were once silence, now we are sound. We were once shadow, now we are light. We aren't perfect, but we are present. And sometimes, that's the truest music of all. Downstairs, Amara rocked Caden to sleep. Daniel washed dishes with quiet hums of the song that had started everything. The same melody Melody had sung, eyes closed, a lifetime ago. Injustice had tried to dim them. Prejudice had tried to rewrite their lines. Silence had once been their undoing, but now they wrote their own music. The family once fractured had become whole. Not flawless, but fierce. The song lingered through the house, not on speakers, but in voices, in laughter, in whispers exchanged at midnight. And when Melody closed her journal, she knew she no longer needed to record every note because she was living it, because the music was theirs to keep. What does harmony look like in your life? Is it a perfect melody? Or is it the sound of people showing up, flawed but present day after day? The knock came sharp, not timid, not neighborly. A sound meant to unsettle. Amara opened the door, Caden balanced on her hip, and froze. On the porch stood a woman in a beige trench coat, lipstick precise, heels too high for casual visits. Her smile curved just enough to mimic kindness, while her eyes betrayed disdain. "Hello, Amara," she said smoothly, stepping inside without waiting for permission. "I was in the neighborhood. Thought I'd finally meet the little star Daniel speaks about." Amara closed the door slowly, as if sealing in the tension. "Melody's upstairs." The woman's gaze swept across the modest living room, lingering on half-dried paintings, a lopsided Lego tower, a wilted bouquet. She smirked. "Charming. I must admit I never pictured Daniel here. Such simplicity?" Amara's voice was steady but iron-hard. "We call it living within our means." "Of course," the woman replied sweetly. "Still, I never imagined him settling for this." Amara's eyes narrowed. He didn't settle. He chose. The word landed sharp, like glass. Before more could be said, Melody bounded down the stairs wearing mismatched socks and a glittery headband. She stopped short at the sight of the stranger. "Mom, who's the lady who smells like my teacher's office?" The woman bent slightly, chuckling. "I'm a friend of your father's. He talks about you constantly." "That's weird," Melody said, tilting her head. "He usually talks about Mom." Amara pressed her lips together to hide a smile. The woman straightened, jaw tight. "You're quite the sharp one. Takes after your mother, I suppose." Melody folded her arms. "Is that supposed to be a compliment? Or something else?" And then it came. The woman's smile sharpened into cruelty. "You're spirited. A very spirited little brown girl pretending to be so sweet." The room froze. Amara's hand moved faster than thought. A slap cracked the air like thunder. Silence. The woman's hand flew to her cheek, eyes wide in shock. "You don't speak to my daughter like that," Amara said. Voice low, final, the woman composed herself, smoothing her coat. She turned toward the door, pausing only to spit venom. "This won't last." He always returns to his world. The door opened again at that moment. Daniel, groceries in hand, caught in the storm. He looked between them. "Everything okay?" Amara exhaled, shoulders taut. "Handled." The woman brushed past him, heels clicking hard against the porch wood. She didn't look back. Daniel set down the bags, brow furrowed. "Handled how?" Amara gave him a weary, triumphant smile. "Trust me, she won't be back." That night the house was quieter than usual, but not heavy. Something had shifted. Amara moved with steadiness, no longer flinching at shadows. Melody hummed more freely, leaving doodles of wedding gowns on scraps of paper. Daniel said little, but in his eyes Amara saw something she hadn't in years, a look of permanence. The air itself seemed to settle. The walls felt reclaimed, for the first time in a long time. The house felt fully theirs. Later, while folding laundry at the end of the couch, Daniel spoke without preamble. "I want to marry you again." Amara froze, a shirt half folded in her hands. She looked at him carefully, as though reading fine print. He didn't rush. His voice was calm, grounded. Not as a redo, as a promise. "To do it right this time," Amara set the shirt aside. She didn't laugh. She didn't cry. She just nodded once. "Then let's do it right." The decision landed in the room like a vow already made. Quiet. Irrevocable. When someone from the past tries to diminish what you've rebuilt, do you let their voice echo? Or do you silence it by living louder together? The wedding was not rushed. It was chosen. Daniel insisted they deserved not only love, but recognition. Not just quiet vows in a kitchen, but a promise witnessed under light, among those who once doubted and those who had always believed. The venue, the Langford Grand, a restored hotel with high ceilings and marble floors. A rooftop terrace overlooked the city skyline. Amara had never pictured herself in such a place, not because she hadn't dreamed, but because she'd taught herself not to. Daniel would not accept anything less. "This time," he told her, "I want the world to see. Not branding, not performance, just home, made visible." The day arrived with a still sky and air charged with expectancy. Guests took their seats in rows of gold-framed chairs. A quartet played soft jazz. White roses spilled from vases along the aisle. Amara stepped forward in ivory satin, hair pinned low, earrings catching the light. She walked alone, head high, stride steady. The guests rose in acknowledgement. At the front stood Daniel in a charcoal suit, not a hair out of place, but his eyes giving him away. Beside him, Melody gripped a bouquet half her size. Seafoam dress flowing, she whispered as Amara approached. "You look like a movie star. Mom?" Amara smiled without breaking stride. The officiant spoke briefly, but the vows were their own. Daniel took Amara's hand, voice steady. "I failed you once. I did not stand when it mattered. I was silent, and silence broke us. I will not be that man again. From this day, I walk beside you, behind you, and ahead when a door needs opening. No more silence." Amara's gaze held his, unwavering. "I left because I couldn't breathe. But I never stopped loving you. I stopped recognizing you. This version, the one who listens, who stays, who holds my hand when it shakes, that's the man I say yes to." Today and every day after, their rings slid into place. Melody passed them over with trembling fingers. Standing taller than she ever had, the applause rose as they kissed. Not hurried, not rehearsed, but steady. This time, the silence between them did not feel like distance. It felt like peace. The reception glowed beneath chandeliers, linen tables, crystal glasses. A jazz band carried warmth through the air. They ate, laughed, and danced. Amara twirled with Melody first, then with Daniel. Melody attempted to copy her mother's spins and fell into giggles. At one point, Daniel overheard a guest murmur, "Very modern, interracial renewal vows. Hyphenated names. Progressive branding." Daniel leaned closer, voice low but sharp. "It's not branding. It's home. Learn the difference." The man said nothing more. Across the floor, Amara met Daniel's eyes. A nod passed between them. Quiet solidarity. Later, Melody stood on a chair, a small sheet of paper trembling in her hands. Her voice shook at first, then steadied. "I wasn't going to speak. But if you can stand in front of everyone and promise forever, then I can say thank you. Thank you for choosing each other again, for not giving up, for making space for me to belong to both of you, not halfway, but whole." The room applauded. Amara wiped her eyes. Daniel pulled Melody close. The photographer's flash caught the embrace. The three of them, bound not by perfection, but by choice. Before the cake, Melody slipped a folded note into Daniel's pocket. He found it later, alone, smoothing the paper with trembling fingers. In her looping script, "Repeat after me. I love you, even when you burn Thanksgiving turkey." "Say it. She's going to test you." Daniel laughed quietly at the mirror, shaking his head. For the first time in years, he felt entirely at peace in his own skin. That night, they left the hotel past midnight. Limo filled with flowers, leftover favors, and Melody's abandoned shoes. The city pulsed outside, neon signs flickering. Inside, there was only music. Hands entwined. A family not perfect, but present, and presence, after all, was everything. What matters more in love, the ceremony others witness, or the quiet promises kept when no one is watching? 2 mornings after the wedding, the house still shimmered with remnants of celebration. Ribbons clung to chairbacks, a bouquet drooped in a mason jar, confetti sparkled beneath the couch. The air held the faint scent of roses and champagne. At the kitchen table, Daniel scrambled eggs, humming off-key. Amara poured juice in her robe, hair lazily pinned. Melody burst in, backpack bouncing, grin stretching wide. "Today's the big audition," she announced. "Princess Leanna, lead role." "I'm going for it," Amara blinked. "You didn't tell us it was today." "Surprise," Melody said, already halfway out the door. "Wish me luck." The audition went better than she imagined. Lines crisp, posture regal. Even the music teacher gave a nod of approval. Melody floated home that afternoon, cast list in hand, her name at the very top. She danced across the living room, journal pages fluttering from her bag. For 3 days, Joy radiated through the house. Daniel rehearsed lines with her. Amara hemmed practice skirts. Caden clapped along like an enthusiastic audience of one. Then came the fourth day. Melody trudged through the door, eyes rimmed red. She dropped her bag, sank onto the couch, and stared at nothing. Amara knelt. "What happened?" "They changed it," her voice cracked. "Gave the role to someone else." Daniel's chest tightened. "Why?" Melody swallowed. "They said it wasn't about talent, just the look they wanted." The silence that followed was heavier than stone. That night, after Melody retreated upstairs, Daniel and Amara sat at the table, light dim, shadows long. Amara's tone was sharp, steady. "We know what this is. It's not costumes. It's not voice. It's skin." Daniel's jaw clenched. "Not again. Not this time." He pushed back his chair. "I won't let them shrink her." Amara placed her hand over his. "Then don't be silent." The next morning, Daniel strode into the principal's office, suit sharp, steps sharper. The principal greeted him with a brittle smile. "Mr. Adams, I understand your disappointment." "No." His voice cut clean, calm, controlled. "My daughter earned that role. You replaced her, not because she was unfit, but because her face didn't match your fantasy." The principal stiffened. "It was a creative decision. You taught her that excellence is irrelevant if her skin doesn't match your storybook," Daniel said. "That is not creativity." "That is bias," her smile faltered. "We are an inclusive school." "Then act like it," Daniel replied, standing. "She will perform, with or without your stage." So they built one. Amara printed flyers at the library. Neighbors lent folding chairs. Daniel called in favors, securing a downtown community theater. Melody's classmates volunteered for costumes and props. What began as loss turned into movement. At rehearsal, Melody trembled, gown stitched by Amara's tired hands. She peeked past the curtain as a local reporter lifted a camera. "You ready?" Amara whispered. Melody straightened. "I was born ready." The curtain rose. Her voice filled the theater, steady, defiant. Each line carried not just character, but history, dignity, claim. She wasn't playing a princess. She was one. The crowd rose in thunder at the final bow. Applause echoed like a storm refusing to end. At the back stood the principal, face unreadable. Daniel didn't need to ask. He knew. Silence had been shattered. The next morning, letters went out. The school admitted bias. They offered an apology. They asked Melody to speak at assembly. She declined. Instead, she walked into class, head high. When asked if she'd return to drama club, she smiled. Only if they've learned what royalty really looks like. That evening, in their living room, Amara knitted, Daniel read, Caden toddled in mismatched socks. Melody sprawled on the rug with her sketch pad. "They thought I'd be too much," she said. "Too different. But all I did was shine where they tried to dim me." Amara looked up. "And you did it with grace." "That's why it mattered." Daniel's voice was low but fierce. "And you did it on your own stage. No one can take that away." Melody grinned, tapping her pen against her chin. "Next time, glitter cannons?" Amara groaned. "Not in my house," Daniel chuckled. "We'll negotiate." And in that laughter, the injustice lost its power. When the world tries to shrink you, do you let them, or do you build a stage wide enough to hold your truth? 10 years passed. 10 years since Daniel first froze on a street corner, struck by a song he thought lost forever. 10 years since Melody's voice stitched their fractured lives into something whole. Now at 16, Melody Catherine Adams was taller, sharper, her curls wilder than ever. She sat at her bedroom window one autumn morning, journal open across her lap. The leather cover was worn, pages crowded with ink and pressed flowers. She read aloud, voice steady. "The first time I sang in front of him, I didn't know he was my dad, but I remember his eyes. They didn't just look at me. They recognized me. Like a melody he had forgotten he knew." Downstairs, the smell of cinnamon pancakes drifted upward. It was Sunday, family breakfast day. No shoes, no rushing. Music from a small speaker competing with the clatter of spoons. Caden Justice Adams, now 2, sat in his high chair, hurling applesauce at invisible dragons. His name had been Melody's idea. Caden for cadence. Justice for everything they had fought to reclaim. Daniel hummed off-key in pajama pants, flipping pancakes with the awkward determination of a man who once managed boardrooms but now bowed to syrup and sticky fingers. Amara entered through the back door, cheeks flushed from a morning walk, arms full of roses. Her flower shop, Cord and Bloom, had been open a year now. It was Melody who had chosen the name. A chord is more than one note, Mama. It's what we are now. Amara set the flowers down, kissed Daniel's cheek, poured coffee. They shared the kind of glance that carried both battles and peace. From the stairs, Melody smirked. "You two are gross." "Rom-com gross," she added. Amara arched an eyebrow. "Says the girl who cried through her school play when the prince kissed the princess." Melody laughed. "Touché." Later, the family piled onto the porch, picnic wagon packed. Daniel raised a hand like a drum major. "Marching orders! Sandwiches, juice boxes, 1 plaid blanket, and 2 chaos machines," Caden squealed. Melody rolled her eyes but grinned, notebook tucked under her arm. At the park, children shrieked on swings, dogs barked in tangled rhythm. They spread the blanket under a tree. Melody lay back, notebook open, pointing at the clouds. "That one looks like a treble clef." Daniel squinted. "No, that one looks like your old drama teacher. The one who made you play a tree," Amara laughed. She hated talent. For a long moment, they were silent. Easy silence, not the kind that once weighed like stone. The kind that belonged to people who had fought to stay and stayed. That night, Melody wrote one last journal entry. "We are not the kind of family that looks perfect on paper, but we are music. We are rhythm. We are harmony found in scars and laughter. We are not flawless, but we are present. And sometimes that's the truest song of all." She closed the journal, setting it aside. She didn't need to record every note anymore, because she was living it. Downstairs, Amara rocked Caden, whispering lullabies. Daniel washed dishes, humming the tune that had started it all. The melody Melody once sang with eyes closed, clutching a ukulele on a street corner. The song that had brought him home. Time had not erased injustice. The world still carried shadows. But in this house they had built light. Silence no longer fractured them. It bound them. And when Melody drifted to sleep, the sound that filled her dreams was not applause or confrontation, but the quiet music of presence. What if justice is not always found in courtrooms, but in kitchens, in playgrounds, in late-night promises whispered in the dark? What if the truest victories are not shouted, but lived one ordinary Sunday at a time? The story you've just witnessed is not only about a father and a daughter, it's about silence broken. It's about injustice challenged. It's about how love, when it refuses to quit, can learn to sing again. Melody, Daniel, Amara, and little Caden are not perfect, but they are present. And sometimes, presence is the greatest justice of all. Maybe, as you listened, you thought of your own family. Of promises broken, of words unspoken, of chances missed. Or maybe you thought of how healing can still arrive, quiet, imperfect, but real. Because families do not always begin the way they should, but they can become what they were meant to be. That is their music. And maybe it can be yours too. If you've stayed with us until now, thank you. Truly, your time here means more than numbers or clicks. It means you believe, like we do, that stories of truth and resilience deserve to be heard. And if this story touched you, even for a moment, consider subscribing to Black Voices Justice. Here, we tell stories that hold on to courage, that confront silence, that turn pain into rhythm and rhythm into hope. Hit the subscribe button. Turn on the bell so you never miss a new chapter. And if you can, share this video with someone who may need a reminder. Broken does not mean finished. Every like, every comment, every share helps keep these stories alive. Helps amplify voices that too often get silenced. So until next time, from our little corner of the world to yours, stay safe, stay kind, and remember, the truest music is not perfection, it's presence. We'll see you in the next story.